This show contains movie spoilers and swearing. Is it you, Dan?
Hello.
Yeah, you doing?
It's
buddy?
me.
Are you there?
Good, you alright?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Are you sure that's you?
Yeah. I don't know, is it me? I don't know.
Alright.
I feel like we're in a scene from The Thing now. I don't believe you're really,
Oh my god.
you really think you are, are you? You're not who you say you are.
I'll just sit back and see what happens, eh?
Jesus.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bitesize Cinema. I'm your host RJ McCready, and for this episode I'm going to be taking you back to 1987 to look at the iconic vampire movie The Lost Boys. And I couldn't think of anybody better to talk about this show. Dan Bone, welcome back to Bitesize Cinema, mate. How are you doing?
Hey buddy, how you doing? I'm doing really well, thank you. Excited to be back on the show again to talk about this awesome movie.
Yeah. Well, Dan, listen, man. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. We originally said we'd do Masters of the Universe, and we're now on to episode 5 together here, all of a sudden. we are knocking them out, mate.
I know. Well, you keep reading me back in, don't you?
I keep luring you back. I keep saying, should we do this film? Should we do this film? And I keep thinking about another film and all that. So, yeah, no, it's good. It's good to have you on board, mate. But how you been? What you been up to? You been watching anything? Dare I say... I'm not going to say shark. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it this time.
Well, I haven't been watching any shark movies yet for a while. I have watched them, a couple of old 50s sci-fi movies. I watched that Giant Claw the other day, which I think you said to me was remade very loosely as Q the Winged Serpent.
Yes.
That's right, isn't it?
I believe so, because the best person to speak to about that, I think, is Gary Hill. He reviewed it on his podcast, and I think he did both the films, talking about, the original and the remake. So, if you haven't seen Q, go check that out as well. It's quite a good movie. It's a typical sort of 70s monster movie. I think it was 70s.
Yeah.
David
it might have even been early 80s. I can't remember now.
Actually, no. Early 80s, yeah, because I remember watching that as a double bill with Alligator. Night on Channel 4 or something like that, do you know what I mean? So the two went quite well together, actually. So, yeah. Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the...
I really enjoyed the Giant Claw, yeah. I love those kind of 50-something giant is coming to attack the city type movies. I love all the shark movies, so anything like that where I can just have a bit of escapism, I love it. I absolutely love it. So, yeah, I watched that movie. Something to bring up, talking of sharks, because we were having a conversation yesterday about quicksand and how it shows up in how it shows up in loads of 80s movies.
Yes.
And I posted up like that little message that was, I thought this was going to be quicksand was going to be a bigger problem when I was a kid growing up in the 80s. Because it was in every movie. And we had a little chat backwards and forwards, and I said, imagine a movie called Quicksand Sharks.
Yeah, chucking some machine guns in there as well, or something like that. Quicksand sharks with machine guns or something. Dan? You have touched on a bit of genius there, though, mate. Do you know what I mean? Because that is something that is worth bringing up with a quicksand. Because now you mention it, it was everywhere, wasn't it? Because a lot of people posted other films as well, wasn't it? Because you had like Kroll, Princess Bride. All the other films.
Never-ending Story as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that is one on top of everything else we was worrying about growing up in the 80s, eh? Do you know what I mean? It's like... Aliens,
mutants, things in the sewers, and quicksand. And
you can do fuck all in the 80s, mate.
Difficult times, very difficult times.
I'm sure you can open the door to your front house because there'd be some film called Monster Door or something with big teeth or something like that. Do you know what I mean? You can do Killer Toaster. I mean, they even brought out a film. It's just ridiculous, Dan. Because when you think about it, everything They even brought out a film called Pulse, which is about electricity, wasn't
Yeah,
it, trying to kill you or something
dude,
like
that movie freaked me out as a kid, man.
You know,
I was worried about electricity for years because of that movie as a kid. It really affected me because there's a scene where the woman is having a shower and the shower gets taken over by the electricity and it burns her so badly that her back all blisters up.
Yeah,
I was so afraid of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I think this is why we suffer with so much trauma today, isn't it? I know, you know, I talk about this a lot on the episodes, but it is, isn't it? I can't review a film without some sort of trauma. Do you know what I mean? Because I was thinking about this again, you know, because even
the effect should stay with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I've got a future episode coming up, The Wizard of Oz. You know, it's supposed to be this nice film that comes out every Christmas, and then you've got that Wicked Witch, haven't you? I mean, it's a pretty screwed up movie, isn't it, when you think about it? So.
Well, even the monkeys, for me, did it for me as a kid. That was terrifying, those monkeys.
Yeah.
When I was a child. And funnily enough, I just checked out your latest episode where you discussed Black Cauldron, and that was a movie I was a real big fan of when I was younger, but also I was a little bit scared of it as well. The only thing that saved that really was my parents said to me, you know, just don't be too afraid, because look, the bad guy in it, what's his name, the Horned King? He looked a bit like Skeletor. So they said, you know, just think of him like Skeletor. You're not afraid of Skeletor, and actually that kind of fixed it for me a little bit. But as the first time I saw that, I was a bit scared of that too. Yeah,
no, I'm with you, man. But it's like I say. I think we said this in the last episode. I think a lot of films that we watched as kids probably prepared us for stuff that we deal with later in life. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a certain level of how you deal with stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's things I've dealt with in my life where I've gone, how did that hero deal with that in that film? And then I'm dealing with it. Do you know what I mean? I know it sounds ridiculous, but it kind of prepares you for stuff in a funny sort of way. So.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I agree. And one film this is a bit of a weird tangent, but one film that really affected me. Yeah. It scared me a little bit, but also really affected me. Was Teen Wolf, because that movie was a bit scary when I was very young, but also it kind of like was my insight into puberty and changes to your body, and I sort of kind of I don't know, I kind of linked that in with like puberty and, you know, going through these changes. I don't go out and howl at the moon or anything, but
maybe you do, Dan.
I know there's something about that movie. I
thought you
maybe I do.
Actually, I thought you did. You got the beard for it, mate, I'll tell you.
Maybe that's why I've got the beard, because of Teen Wolf, you see.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, maybe you're really Teen Wolf, Dan. Do you know what I mean? You're only good at basketball.
My wife did ask me. No, I'm no good at basketball. My wife did ask me once. She said, "Is the reason you've got a beard because you like werewolf films?" I actually stopped and thought, "Is that the reason? Maybe I don't know. Maybe she's onto something."
Anybody listening to this show, if you've got a beard and you like werewolf movies, do you know what I mean? Let us know. Bloody hell, Dan. Where are we going with this show, mate?
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Welcome to the Beard and Werewolf Movie Podcast. Oh, dear. God, dear. Right. Oh, man. I've forgotten what movie we're reviewing now.
Looking at Lost Boys, because unfortunately Joel Schumacher did pass away a couple of weeks ago, didn't he?
Well, this is what got us onto this episode, wasn't it? Because we did have it in mind to do, I think, but then, like I say, Joel Schumacher passed away, which is incredibly sad. But like I say, we've dedicated this episode to him. Just to talk about him, because I know he directed two of your you mentioned a couple of Batman movies, didn't you? Was it Batman and Robin? He directed
Batman,
movies,
Robin and Batman Forever, and although they're not critically acclaimed, they're fun, silly movies that I kind of have a soft spot for.
Yeah.
You know, they get slated. But he also did other movies like Flatliners, which, you know, a lot of people love, with Kiefer Sutherland as well.
He did St. Elmo's Fire, which is quite
Oh
popular.
man, what a movie!
I think that was his first film. He did that before The Lost Boys. I think that kind of what got him on the block. And then he did a film with Michael Douglas, which is Falling Down, which I'm sure
is such so good. So
that might be one we might have to do for the show, mate. You know, because I'm sure I heard you guys talk about it on your show on Haunted Hill.
That's right, yeah. Because Gav actually said that's one for you and RJ to cover on his shows, and I'd be well up for that because I think that's such an underrated gem. Michael Douglas is incredible in it, and it's all about. I'm all for a vigilante or a guy, you know, and I know you're the same. The underdog.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's certainly the underdog in that movie.
Yeah, he goes in.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
I don't want to be your friend or something, don't you, to the guy behind the burger counter, isn't it? Just want a little breakfast.
That's right. And they say to him, well, we stopped serving breakfast 2 minutes ago. And he's like, yeah, but I can see the breakfasts on the shelf right there. Yeah. So I just want the breakfast. And they're like, we can't serve you. And he said, but the breakfasts are right there. Then he pulls out the gun and...
Look at this story excuse for a burger. It looks nothing like that up in the picture, doesn't it, on the wall? He says it's great. Yeah, so,
Yeah, Schumacher definitely directed a range of movies, you know, horror, action. He did Phone Booth, which I'm a big fan of as well. Then he did Phantom of the Opera. You know, he's done some, you know, a whole range of different genres.
Yeah, I believe the
music videos as well.
Phantom of the Opera was an early Gerard Butler. Is that right? Did he do Phantom? I can't.
Yeah, Gerard Butler's in that. Yeah, I don't know how early in his career it was, but it's definitely Gerard Butler.
Yeah. See,
yeah, I wasn't a fan of it.
I think that Joel Schumacher, as a director, I would say this about him, is I think that he did what he wanted to do as a director. Looking at his films, so you know, you're talking about the Batman and Robin. I think that's what he had in his mind to do, and he did it.
Yeah.
And you know, with the film we're going to talk about today, I think The Lost Boys was originally going to be a Richard Donner film. He did obviously The Goonies and Lethal Weapon, and it was originally going to be a kids' movie, much like The Goonies. And then Joel Schumacher took it on because Richard Donner went to go and do Lethal Weapon. And he said, I want to make it into a sexy sort of vampire movie with the kids a bit older, you know, motorbikes, and exactly what we get now, you know. So I think he does a great job of it. But yeah,
awesome. Yeah, he definitely had a vision, and it's a very unique vampire movie.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, and the other thing I was going to quickly say, Dan, I think you just mentioned it a minute ago, was Ennio Morricone. Sad to hear. Was that today that he passed away?
It was, yeah. It was actually today. Creator of some incredible musical themes for movies like The Thing, as we all mimic that theme tune to The Thing, but it's an incredible little piece of music. A lot of atmosphere behind it.
Oh my
god!
But
a whole bunch of movies he did, didn't he?
He did all the Sergio Leone movies, didn't he? Obviously, the iconic, you know, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He also did The Untouchables as well, didn't he? I mean, that's a great score. That
is one of my favourite pieces of music. I love that. That score to that is incredible. And Tarantino brought him back to do The Hateful Eight.
He did.
So he did the music for The Hateful Eight as well.
Do you know about that score? I think you guys talked about it on your show, didn't you? It was actually
remind me.
Okay, the score, or some of the score for The Hateful Eight, is unused material from The Thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So yeah, some of the material we didn't use for The Thing he used for The Hateful Eight. So that kind of, because you know, people say The Hateful Eight is The Thing, isn't it? In a roundabout sort of way. With
an isolated, snowy several blokes trapped in a little place. No one trusts anybody. Yeah, definitely.
With Kurt Russell and the dude on the stagecoach who looks like McCready and everything. So yeah, so there's a little bit of tribute there for that.
Oh yeah.
So it's a bit of a sad loss for that this week. Do you know what I mean? With Joel and Ennio. Unfortunately, these things usually come in threes this way. You know, dare I say it? I don't want to say it, but do you know what I mean? In the film world, You know, when people die, it goes in that.
Yeah,
way,
I know what you
so,
mean. I mean, Ennio Morricone was 91, so he definitely had a good, fantastic life. But you're right. There's people out there that I think, gosh, how are they still going? You know, and someone like, dare I say it, but somebody like John Carpenter, who's always constantly smoking, and you know, or Dario Argento, or somebody like that.
Yeah,
gosh, we need to wrap these guys up in cotton wool and they can look after them.
There's 100 million fans out there now just wrapping Carpenter up in bubble wrap. It's alright,
We need to, please.
It's alright, John, it's okay, we're going to chuck a video game and some cigarettes in there for you just to keep you going. Oh dear.
He loves a cigarette. He does love a cigarette.
That's it, yeah. That's all he does now, isn't it? He plays video games. I think when he's an executive producer on a film, he just takes a paycheck and opens the door, puts his head in, and then just brings it back. Yeah, that's okay. Done. Back onto my video game.
He does love the video games. It's crazy, man. But you know, it's cool. He's done what he does, what he want to do. You know,
yeah,
so
he's. I don't need to say that he's a legend, absolute legend. And
he's a legend.
A little bit of news there, Dan, as you might already know, I've actually got, talking about John Carpenter, going to be doing The Thing. I'm finally getting around to doing that for Bitesize Cinema. And I've got one of the biggest Thing fans out there, a guy called Peter Abbott. Little shout out to Pete. He's been to the actual location, he's met John Carpenter loads of times. He's actually been created into a comic book character with one of John Carpenter's latest magazines. He's on the Blu-ray extras and everything, so I'm getting him on the show to have a talk about all that stuff, so yeah, so it'd be good.
That's insane. That's exciting and insane.
Yeah, he's up there as one of the biggest fans, so you know what I mean, so it's insane. So he's
brilliant. Well, that'll be exciting to hear.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, on a very good note, a quick shout out to Ricky Morgan from Helming Power. He's got some good news today. His grandson was born, I think it was either this week or today or this week, and I just thought I'd give him a shout out and congratulations, our good buddy, one of our fellow Legion brothers. And I love the name of his grandson.
It's great news.
I have spoken to Rick about this, and his little grandson is called Rocky Kowalski, and I think that is a brilliant name.
Such a great name,
that is
Rocky.
A great name.
Yeah,
so there
love
you go.
it.
Congratulations, Rick. So shall we have a look at this movie then, Dan? Shall we get a trailer playing and get into the boys, mate? Yeah. So, all right, guys. So let's take you back to Santa Carla. Let's get on the motorbikes. Let's play you guys a trailer, and we will see you soon.
Michael and Sam have just moved to Santa Carla, California. They're about to discover its secret.
Notice anything unusual about Santa Carla yet?
No. It's a pretty cool place. If you're a Martian.
Or a vampire.
So where are you? The flying nun?
I'm your brother, Sammy. Help me!
Stay back! Stay back!
What's happening to me, Star? Get yourself a good sharp steak. Drive it right through his heart.
You're a vampire, Michael. My own brother, a damn blood-sucking vampire. Oh, you wait till Mom finds out, buddy.
When a vampire buys it, it's never a pretty sight.
Michael, they're coming! Oh, shit!
Hello and welcome back, guys. So the synopsis of this film is: after moving to a new town, two brothers discover that the area is a haven for vampires. It's a horror comedy, it's rated 15, it's got 7.3 on IMDb and a 90-minute runtime. Dan, The Lost Boys, man. What a vampire movie, eh? What do we have to say about this movie, man?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's my favourite vampire movie of all time. So that's quite a big thing for me to say. I put this above Fright Night, although it's in that kind of same vein as Vamp from Fright Night. You've got that 80s vampire feel to it, but like we were saying, before the trailer, it's such a unique film. It's hilarious. It's actually quite scary at times. Got a fantastic cast, and it's just so different, really. It's told from almost a teen perspective, so it appeals to that teen audience member. Oh, it's just awesome.
Do you remember when you first watched it?
I was probably in my early teens, and it was probably on television. I don't think maybe we rented it out. Maybe my parents rented it out, and we watched it that way. I wouldn't have seen it in the cinema. I was too young, but I do remember watching it when I was probably about the age of, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim in this, probably about 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. It appealed to me. Obviously, I saw myself as that character.
I think we all did, mate, at that time. Because I think, I think I watched this probably about 1989, because it took a little bit of a time to get to VHS, didn't it, in those times?
Yeah.
And I actually saw, my first viewing of this was around my mate's house, who I watched all these great movies. I watched Demons round his house, and there was a load of Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff like that. His brother was a massive horror fan. His bedroom was littered with horror, do you know what I mean? Posters, all this sort of stuff. And I walked in to him watching The Lost Boys, and it was that bit when the Frogbug brothers turn up on their BMX bikes. When when Corey Phil, we better make a phone call, that's okay, we're on it, and all this sort of, the whatever voice he does. And I just walked in on that bit, and so I watched it from there onwards. And it is the pinnacle point of the movie, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? They go into the lair and everything. We get onto that later on. And I was like, oh my God, what is this film? And then I was just like, oh wow, this is amazing, do you know what I mean? And I was buzzing. And I was just hooked from there onwards, do you know what I mean? And I think that Christmas, it was on that Christmas on TV, and I watched it, and I just fell in love with it. And I watched it last night, for the show, and I'm in love with that movie just as much as I was back then. Do you know what I mean? I never get tired of this film. Do you know what I mean?
I'm exactly the same. I probably end up watching it once or twice a year, because it's just that kind of movie, really, if not sometimes more. I usually watch it over Halloween, but then it's kind of a good movie to watch when the summer starts coming in as well, because it's set in a very hot place, and you kind of get that vibe from it. I just want to be there on the beach with the guy with the saxophone, RJ.
Oh God, yeah. What, covering yourself in grease or something like
that? He's so oily, isn't he? He's all slick and
yeah. Oh mate. He's like a WWF wrestler, isn't he? Was it Hitman?
He reminds me of he reminds me of the Hitman. Yeah, he does. That's it.
That's kind of what I was getting back then, and it kind of fitted the time. But I think I said this to you before in the last episode. I've actually been to Santa Cruz where they filmed The Lost Boys. I don't know if you've ever been there. Have you been there, Dan?
I've not. No, I've only ever been to New York in the States.
So I was on a sort of road trip around America, and I went to Santa Cruz, and it's exactly the same as it is in the movie. Same. It was really hot. I went to the locations, and I took my daughter, who was only 18 months at that time, and she had her first carousel ride on the carousel, which is in the movie. I've got pictures of it somewhere.
Really?
Yeah. I said to my daughter, my daughter Megan, I said, she's already saying words then, but put her on there. Thought your first carousel ride is going to be for this iconic movie, and it's exactly what it's like. It's exactly the same. And yeah, so it was great. I was just having a massive.
I've heard nothing much has changed.
No, even the car park's still there. The bit at the beginning with the security guard, who gets zipped away. That's all there. And we was even staying in a holiday park up in the hills, which looks exactly the same to the house that they live in. Do you know what I mean? The same sort of vibe and aesthetic and everything. So so it's cool.
Yeah, they're not happy with this movie, though, are they? That because that city, because it's now got the tagline of the murder capital of the world, and they weren't very happy with that.
Is that now? I read that as well. Now, is it because it does have a problem with crime, or is it just because of this film?
It did. I think it did in the 70s. There was like 2 serial killers in a row or something in the 70s, but then because of this film as well, I think people obviously, but obviously there's probably places that have got higher murder rates than this place. But I know it was a bit of a stigma that they had for a while.
Yeah,
for sure.
I went there. I survived. I've been doing I've been doing night shifts ever since I come back, and I don't like the sunlight, but I survived and I came back. Don't really like garlic or crosses.
Have you been wearing sunglasses a lot? Is that what this is?
Got a dog called Fawn.
My own brother.
Got bad breath, long fingernails, hair like Jim Morrison.
Oh man, I love that. I love that. They are all so cool. I mean, the cast is incredible in this, isn't it? As well, you've got everybody in this really.
It's one of those films where I like everybody in this film. It's very clever to actually have the bad guys just as good as the good guys, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
They're very cool. Well, they're incredibly cool. You kind of want to be in their gang with them,
He's not a vicious. Well, he is vicious, isn't he, David, and the leader of the pack and all that. But he just does it in a very charming sort of way, and I guess that goes with all vampires, doesn't it? Really, they will kill you.
Yeah,
but they'll do it in a charming sort of way, isn't it? You know what I mean? Very sort of sexy. And I suppose that's another big point, isn't it? Of vampire movies, there is sex is involved, isn't it? I think John Carpenter said that in one of his films with vampires. He said if there's no sex, it's not a vampire movie. So it's kind of got that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's all about seduction. Because to be crude, vampires do exchange bodily fluids. Obviously it's blood, but there's that whole kind of undertone of sex, an addiction that goes with being a vampire, and they're always incredibly cool and sexy anyway. And particularly if you've got bleached blonde hair like Kiefer Sutherland with an earring and a motorbike, then wow,
I mean,
you're badass, aren't you? And he's quite nice to Michael as well. He sort of he's not, like you said, he's not vicious. He sort of says, you want to be in the gang, come on, this is what it's all about. Obviously, it doesn't work out well, but
no, and like I say, I think that's the thing. I think someone's heard the same conversation about Jerry Dandridge on a Fright Night tangent, because he's the same, isn't he? He's very charming. He kind of wanted Charlie to not get involved, didn't he? Kind of gave him that chance, and it's a similar sort of thing. In these vampires in these films. They will kill you, but they'll do it in a charming way. But very quickly, let's check out their wardrobe. It's great, isn't it? The clothes that they wear as well. It's very sort of 80s, but bohemian, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's got a real, it's got its own identity, isn't it? You know what I mean? I don't think I've seen that. Anywhere else in any other movie.
No, you're right. The way the vampires dress is certainly very unique. But just the dress in this, it's just incredibly 80s. Some of Corey Haim's shirts and his dressing gown is just ridiculous, but in an amazing way as well. It's another reason I love it. Really, is it really, really captures that feel of the 80s. And we haven't even talked about the music and the score yet. Jesus, I mean, do you want to?
Yeah, let's
touch on that.
Just after we've just checking out your civilian wardrobe.
Just civilian wardrobe, man.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, Dan, I was going to get onto that with the music, man. I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it? I've listened to this song so many times. I've listened to the soundtrack so many times in my car, particularly. to the point where I thought, I can't listen to this soundtrack again, surely. And I put it on and I go, yes, I can. It's just it, and I think the thing with it just takes me back to Santa Carla. It takes me back to the movie. Do you know what I mean? The song "Cry Little Sister." It almost pulls you into the TV screen as you hear it, and you think you're going on this adventure or this ride. You know, it's amazing.
Even we touched on it, even the guy singing on stage who sings, "I Still Believe," that song. I still love that song as well. It's so 80s, and it really evokes that sexy, sleazy, late night vampire. He's all oily, so that helps, I suppose. But
you know what, Dan? That's the second time you brought that up now.
I mean, it might not be the last.
I know I'm going to get you for Christmas, mate. I'll get you a saxophone and some oil. Happy Christmas.
Well, he's even got a chain around his neck, hasn't he?
Yeah.
It's just so weird, but I love it. I love it.
It's weird, but it just works so well. And when you love to spend a night in that theme park.
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
And I think I've heard you mention this before as well with watching films. Particularly, I know you watch The Burbs. Get our little Burbs reference in
absolutely.
there. And you say comfort food, and it is, isn't it? You watch this film, and even though it's a horror film, it just feels like comfort food, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? It takes you to a nice, cosy place, You've got the Frog Brothers in their comic book store as vampire hunters. You've got the vampire gang, you've got the carousel, you've got the guy on the saxophone. Everybody seems to be having a good time, don't they? Do you know what I mean? It's just awesome. Just so cool.
Yeah, and even though, it's obviously horrible things are happening as the movie works out, this never feels too threatening. It's always fun as well. There's an element of fun all the way through this.
Yeah.
So it's not doing anything devious. It's just a fun movie. Obviously there's a few beheadings or whatever, but
yeah, but this, I think this is the weird thing with this film, though, isn't it? Because there is horror, but it doesn't feel. Do you know what I mean? You don't come away and think, I feel massively affected by this movie. It's very cleverly done. And the other thing I was going to mention as well was the Peter Pan element to this film as well, isn't it? It's got it's based on the Peter Pan story, obviously, with the Lost Boys and Michael and, never growing old and living forever and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of like that sort of aspect to it as well.
Yeah, because I think apparently some of the characters' names in the original screenplay were actually the children's names from the Peter Pan story, and they kept Michael, and I think David was one of them as well, but they changed a few of them. And there's even a dog in this, or a couple of dogs actually, much like there was in Peter Pan as well. So there's definitely those elements, and obviously they can fly like the Lost Boys could as well in Peter Pan. So
yeah, that's right. You can fly, and also the girl, the love interest in this is called Star, which is obviously in Peter Pan they fly to the star to go to Neverland. So that's the reference there as well. And I guess the character we haven't mentioned is Max. He's probably the coolest bloke in the 80s there, isn't he, with his video store. I dare say that would probably be me in my 40s.
He is a pretty cool guy.
He's, I mean.
I can imagine that.
Welcome to RJ McCready's video store in Santa Cruz.
I'll be coming in there to hire movies every weekend from you. Don't you worry about that.
Are you looking for a job, Dan?
Do I look that desperate?
Yeah. What does he say to her? You have I can't remember what it is now. He says something, but see, for me, when I watched this, when I found out about the Peter Pan element, he's kind of like the Captain Hook character as well. Just I kind of place him as that character. So,
yeah,
do you know what I mean?
He's kind of a real little trick, isn't it, as well? This movie really tricks you the first time you see it into thinking, obviously we'll get into that later, but towards the end when you realise that he's the head vampire, you're like, what? I thought it was David. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I remember as a kid being blown away by that.
It tricks you, but then the Frog Brothers and Sam, they've already worked it out, haven't they? But because obviously the bit we'll get into later on with the dinner table and all that. So they it's very clever how that story sort of keeps you guessing, doesn't it, all the way up until the end.
And do you know about the Us connection as well? You know the Jordan Peele movie Us?
I haven't seen that yet, but tell me, mate, what is it?
So, if I remember this correctly, because I've only seen it the once, but at the very beginning it's set in 1987, and it's set in Santa Carla or Santa Cruz, and they are, I can't remember the opening scene now, but basically they allude to, they're filming over there, they're making some vampire movie over there.
Oh, that's clever.
And so they just touch on the fact that they're making the Lost Boys in Us. So look out for that when you do get around to it.
Okay, yeah, I think
the opening scene.
I love Easter eggs like that. I think that's brilliant. The other thing I was going to say, it was not a massive budget to this film either. $7 million. So that's quite low budget, really, back in that time. Always like to chuck that one in.
That is very, very low, and you can tell they didn't have a lot of money for effects. So when they do the effects, they're very few and far between, but they look incredible. We don't see much of the vampires flying other than a point of view, which would have been very cheap to do, and it works really well. And the makeup is only really used at the very end, the contact lenses and the makeup, and it looks brilliant. But other than that, it's hardly any special effects really.
Yeah,
so I can see how they kept that budget down.
Yeah, this is the other thing. It's something, because the effects are so good but so simple, and I don't even think about it. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't look out of date now either, does it? Do you know what I mean? When you look at it, because it's all done very well with the prosthetic. Put my teeth back in, but you know what I mean. But I think this this style of vampire was the start to, I would say, other films like with the vampires in From Dusk Till Dawn. They've still got similar sort of looking,
I agree.
Buffy the Vampire
Buffy and
Slayer,
Angel. Exactly, yeah.
So, but like you say, where you don't, there's certain scenes where what you don't see is what you imagine, which has obviously worked before, hasn't it, with films like Jaws. Do you know what I mean? You can do an effect.
Yeah, because when you see... You've seen something flying down at a car or a guy, you don't need to see that vampire flying. It would have probably looked terrible in 1987, but instead we just see them scared, looking back at the camera like, what? And you're thinking, well, what can they see? And like you said, less is more.
That's it. We'll come down and grab you, and as we grab you, you try to grab hold of that car door, and it just pulls off.
I love that bit. That just shows how strong the vamps are.
Oh my god, yeah. So I think that's all the trivia and production stuff, Dan. So do you want to do us a bite-sized review on the Lost Boys, then, mate? Do you want to give us a bit of storytelling on this?
Of course, man.
Because I love your storytelling, man.
So it's kind of reminds me of Karate Kid in some ways, because we got these people moving to a new town in America. They're going to be a little bit out of place. Do you get that vibe? Do you know what I mean?
Yep. And I think I think it works so well as well. And that's a good example from the Karate Kid. Similar sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So David, Michael, Sam. Actually, we do start off with a little bit of. You do actually get to meet David and his crew on that famous carousel that you mentioned. Actually, I forgot that's the opening scene.
Yeah, he walks on the boardwalk, doesn't he? So.
That's right. He starts a bit of a fight with somebody, doesn't he? And they get thrown off the boardwalk by a security guard, who later on in the car park, as we mentioned, something flies down, attacks him, rips the door off of his car because he's still gripping the handle, and that's kind of it, really. We just get that fade into that music now. Then
the Echo and the Bunnymen, was it People Are Strange? Oh man, what a great song that is. To start this movie off.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
Originally by the Doors, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, and that's the reason why one of the reasons why Jason Patric got picked for this role, because Joel Schumacher thought he looked like Jim Morrison. So
he really does
sort of
remind me of him, actually. There's a poster of him up somewhere in the film, and there's definitely a similarity.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a tie in there with that.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Michael, Sam, and their mum, they're moving to Santa Carla, and they drive past that sign that says the murder capital of the world. People Are Strange is playing, and we do get to see just this crazy bunch of people that live in this city, don't we?
I think it's just a great introduction, isn't it? You just get little flashes of different characters. There's a guy, funny enough, who looks like R.J. McCready with his hat and his glasses. I just chucked on the page the other day. I never noticed that before.
I never noticed that, and then I had to pause it when I watched this the other night. I thought, I must look out for that character, and I saw him straight away, and I thought, God, there's definitely a similarity there.
See, Kurt Russell did survive in the end.
I wonder if that was intentional or just complete coincidence.
I don't think so. It must have been a coincidence.
He moved to Santa Carla.
Yeah. He's got his bald JB.
It was too cold, so he decided to go somewhere hot.
Yeah, there you go. He went to Santa Carla, and now he's dealing with vampires. God, you imagine that RJ turning up with his flamethrower. Yeah, fuck you too.
One of my favourite lines.
The ends. That's it.
So People Are Strange, etc., etc. Loads of crazy people. I love the bit where they get to Grandpa's house, because they're staying with.
God.
And he's dead, isn't he? He's lying there dead. And the kids are like, if Grandpa really is dead, can we just go back home? She's like, come on. And he's just taking the piss. And already, straight away, you find out this Grandpa is mental. He's just not your normal Grandpa.
It's a show-stealing. He's a show-stealing character, isn't he? Because he looks like Woody Nelson, doesn't he? The old country western singer. That's what I always think. And it's just... He has all the lines, doesn't he, when they're at the house, you know?
Yeah, he's like, rules, we got rules. The second shelf in the fridge is mine. Root beers and my double thick Oreo cookies. You do not touch the second shelf. That's mine. They kind of, he lays down the ground rules of the house. He's really into taxidermy as well, because they mentioned that house reminds him.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing there, isn't it?
And then I know one of your favourite lines is when they ask him about the TV guide.
Oh mate, yeah, that's it. It's just, have you got a TV, Grandpa? No, I just read the TV guide. Got the TV guide? Don't need a TV. Oh mate, I tell you, it's just brilliant, isn't it? And then he says about the little label, doesn't he?
He's don't peel the label off. You might be tempted to, but don't, because it rips the cover. I mean, this is a vampire movie, and we've got this character who's into taxidermy. You know, he wears Windex. Is aftershave. Right. Like, what's he doing in a vampire movie? I don't know, but it works. Works.
What's good for aftershave around here? Got some Windex out, Grandpa? Oh yeah, that'd do just fine. Lovely. It's great.
I got a date with the widow Johnson.
Yes. He's brilliant. He's fantastic.
Oh God.
Oh dear.
Yeah, he really is. He really is. And the payoff for that character at the end of the movie, you know, it's brilliant when he just that last line that he says. You're just like, oh, he knew about this thing the whole time.
And it just
so good.
It just finishes the film so well, doesn't it? I know we're jumping there, but it does, doesn't it? Just make it. I think sometimes I've mentioned this to Rick in Big Trouble in Little China episode. Sometimes the ending to a film is vital, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Because it's that little bit that you just remember, and it just works so well for this movie.
Yeah, you want to go out on a high. You certainly do with this movie, for sure. So we get my favourite scene, I still believe, where we all head out at night. So they go out exploring. You know, this is just a taste of what this town is like, really. You know, we've got a rock band on stage. People are like dancing and reveling. And Michael spots this beautiful woman in the crowd called Star, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very interested in her. Sam's annoyed. His little brother's sort of, you know, pay attention to me. Stop looking at the girl.
He kind of knows that he's going to lose his brother now, doesn't he, to a girl, doesn't he? Which he's a little bit sort of upset about, isn't it? So, He says something. Then your sex hormones control you, bruv. Something like that.
I love that there's lots of missing children posters just subtly placed here and there throughout, indicating
right,
that there's an underbelly of something sinister happening in the town as well.
That's right, because you get the security guard pinned up on the wall as well, didn't you? From the beginning of the film, he's joined the missing people, isn't he? Board.
Yeah, there's loads of people going missing in this town. I wonder why. The Lost Boys enter Max's video store. Max is very strict with them. He's not afraid of them. He says, I've told you not to come in here. Leave. Please go. And their mum, sort of Lisa. Is it Lisa, the mum? That's her name, isn't it?
Yes.
Lucy, sorry.
So I had to look them for a minute. Yeah, it's Lucy, yeah.
She's very kind. She's like, oh, come on. They were just kids, I'm sure they're harmless, really. We all did things like that when we were younger. And Max is like, oh, you're very kind. You seem like such a good soul.
That's right. He says,
they get chatting and that.
You have a generous nature. I like that. Yeah, it's a very charming chat-up line, isn't it?
And if you didn't know he was a vampire, he's just so charming. But see, that is part of being a vampire, isn't it? He's so lovely to her. And I think is that where he offers her the job, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's what we said earlier, isn't it? She said, I'm looking for, and he goes, a job? And she goes, yeah. And he offers her the job, doesn't he? And did you notice in the background there's actually a Goonies poster or VHS? It's almost like a sort of blink and you miss it, but it's like a little hidden Easter egg to...
I have heard that there is. I haven't ever been able to see it, but I've heard that it's there, definitely.
I only noticed it the other night because when you're podcasting, you just sort of see stuff with a little bit of a critical eye, and I just noticed it. But yeah, she's just behind Lucy, but there you go. But so we've got a VHS vampire, but we don't know it yet, do we? Not this time.
Yeah, that's so cool. That would be a good movie name, VHS Vampire, wouldn't it?
Hello, and welcome to the VHS Vampire Podcast. Today's episode.
Oh, wow.
I should do that. That'd be good. I went to my VHS store and said, goddamn vampire in there. I'm going to go and sort it out. I'm going to go and save my VHS.
Well, talking of the Goonies and talking of people sorting out vampires, we next get to meet Edgar and Alan Frog, don't we?
Oh, man. This is it. This is the other thing, though, Dan. That's what I was saying. You've got a cool VHS store. Then you've got a comic book store with the Frog Brothers. You're like, boom. They're so cool, aren't they? Oh,
and it's obviously it's Corey Feldman, and I never know the other guy's name actually. It's quite bad, but I've never really seen him in much else really.
Oh,
is it it's Jameson Newlander? That's it. So I don't know. He's probably been in things, but
well, I'll tell you what else he's in. He's in The Blob, 1988, and he plays a cinema usher. So next time you watch that, you look out for him. That's the only other film I know him in. But yeah, but he's cool. I mean, could you imagine that like that? And I've said this before. There's some roles. I think you'd take that as an actor, wouldn't you? Like now, if you said to people, oh yeah, I was one of the Frog Brothers. That's it.
Absolutely.
I'm done. That's it. That's my acting career. I'm done. Oh dear. But I know you're
definitely, man. And they steal the show a little bit. These guys, they know their shit about vampires. They seem very odd and weird, and they don't like Sam initially. And Sam doesn't seem to like them, but obviously they end up becoming good buddies as well.
Yeah. Like I say, this is where he comes out and he goes, just checking out your civilian wardrobe, isn't it, and all that. And they're just, I think purposely they were told by Joel to watch Sylvester Stallone movies and Chuck Norris movies, weren't they, to get into that sort of character development, wasn't it? So
I think that's amazing that Corey Feldman was watching Chuck Norris movies to try and think, right, how would he act? This was the first movie the two Coreys were in together, wasn't it, as well?
Well, that's right, because they went on to go and do, was it License to Drive, was it, after this, I think? Did a couple of other
they did a couple of ones together, but this was the first one, and they became really close because they were the youngest on set. So whenever they'd wrap for shooting for the day, the other cast would all go out and party or whatever, but they were too young, so they just spend all their time in the amusement arcades and on the boardwalk, and listening to music and reading comic books. So they kind of like lived the life really of the actual Frog Brothers, the two Coreys, became really close because of it.
I think Corey,
which is nice.
Corey Feldman say that this is one of his favourite shoots to be on, or something like that. I think Ricky.
Yeah,
Butler,
he said. I think he said it was the greatest experience of his career. Making this film. I think he said something like that.
And I think Ricky Butler in The Burbs is one of his favourite characters he's played, or something like that. But I know you're on a slight tangent, Dan. I know you're a big fan of Corey Feldman, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I know I've heard you say it before on your show and stuff like that. But yeah, it just.
Well, you mentioned this last time we talked. You mentioned, what a career, what a great CV he's had. He was in a Friday the 13th movie, The Goonies, Gremlins, Lost Boys, The Burbs, and probably a bunch of others. Stand By Me. Just a fantastic little selection of roles, really.
Yeah, he's one of those blokes who I just can't not like, if you know what I mean. It's just, do you remember that video? I think Mark Lockhart posted it on your page ages ago, where it's like it's just shot in one take, isn't it? Of him getting out of bed and walking and running around his mansion, singing or something.
Because he's got a music career now, hasn't he? This is it. So yeah, and it was just him singing to the camera. It's just very strange stuff.
He got married in Las Vegas or something like that, didn't he? He had this wedding, I seem to remember. But yeah, he's got a rock and roll lifestyle, I think, right now.
I think apparently when he turned up on set the first day, he was on a real cocaine come down. Now bear in mind how young he was. And Joel Schumacher said, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say to you, go home, rest, get some sleep, and when you come back tomorrow, I want you to be ready for this role. And he did, and he got off of everything, for the duration of this movie at least. But he was quite a young lad, so to be getting into that kind of a lifestyle already,
he must have just been in his teens, wasn't he? He wasn't all that old, I would have thought.
Yeah, he must have been. Because they're all very young in this. I mean, he'd only made Stand By Me the year before with Kiefer Sutherland. And Kiefer Sutherland lied about his age in this to get this role in The Lost Boys. He told them he was a year or 2 years older than he actually was. I think he was only 17, Kiefer Sutherland, when he made this. So they're all very, very young in this.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I guess that was the 80s, wasn't it, really? It was all a bit crazy, really. Yeah, we kind of laugh about it, but actually there's some sad stuff that came out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. But I'd imagine it's probably it's a lot for these guys, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Being in a theme park's a good example. It's like you're on this sort of roller coaster, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Young, having fun, things get a bit out of hand. But like you say, in all fairness to Corey Feldman, he pulled his act together, didn't he, for this movie? Whatever was going on in his, private life, but he pulled it together. Which I don't think that's really noticeable on screen, if you know what I mean. I wouldn't have thought that he would have had a drug problem.
No, because some actors you can tell a little bit perhaps, but Corey Feldman just always acted like a bit of a stoner. In every movie he's in, he's always just a bit cool, bit laid back, he was even in the Ninja Turtles movie, which we talked about last. I've just realised that as well.
This is the thing, when you start talking about it, you realise, and he was in, I think you mentioned it, didn't you? Gremlins, he was in as well.
Yeah, Gremlins as well. God, been in loads of stuff.
This is it, It's he's had a hell of a career, man. Just like I say, big fan of this guy. Yeah,
so him and Alan, his brother, they tell Corey Feldman, they warn him, that they tried to get him to take a comic book about vampires, and he's like, I'm not really into horror comics, really. And he's like, oh, there's a number on the back, pray you never need to call us. So they're trying to basically say to him, like, we know about truth, justice, and the American way. We're dedicated to a higher purpose. And he's like, my favourite line is when they say, there's a number on the back, pray you never need to call us. And Sam's like, okay, I'll pray I never need to call you.
Yeah, that's it. Is it with a hint of sarcasm there, isn't it? Thinking, what the hell are these guys, Yeah. Oh, man, it's brilliant.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
So David and Star do manage to hook up. So David does manage to sort of meet up with this ethereal woman that he's seen earlier, and they go on a bike ride. I think she goes on his bike. Oh no, sorry, I'm thinking of Michael. David and Star go off on a bike ride, and this is where that couple that are in the back of a car. I think isn't she reading a comic book or something in the back of this car, and
yes,
and he's trying to like kiss her or something.
Yeah, he's trying to sort of seduce her, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Boyfriend or whatever. And she starts hearing something scratched, doesn't she? And she said, "Do you hear something?" And he's
That's right.
not interested in it. And all of a sudden, was it the roof pulls up, doesn't it? And again, it's like you said earlier, you don't really see what happens, do you? Just see them look up and get like a POV, don't you?
You see nothing at all, really.
No.
Just the roof gets taken off, and that's it, really. And we're assuming that vampires have come and ripped them out of the car, which they obviously have.
They fly off, and that's it, isn't it? And so you've got some more victims here, haven't you? A little bit more horror stuff going on in this movie. And then I think you go back.
Yeah, all sort of going on in the background.
Is it the same night where they go back and then they pick up Michael? Is this a bit where they go?
So it's it's the following night. This is the bit I was getting muddled up with. So Star and Michael start talking on the following night. So they're obviously going back to this boardwalk every night. And she's about to get on Michael's, because he's got a motorbike as well. And David says, "Don't go with him, Star." And he sort of has power over her because we find out that she's only half vampire. And Michael sort of and him have this sort of standoff. And eventually David says, "See if you can keep up with me. Have you heard of Hudson's Bluff?" And Michael's like, I'm not gonna beat you. My bike can't beat your bike. He said, "I'm not saying you got to beat me. You just got to keep up with me." And so we get this first sort of interaction between David and Michael. And I mean, David's gang are, like you mentioned earlier, they are dressed so strange, aren't they?
Yeah, again, I watched it the other night, actually last night, and I just thought I just can't compare their style or their look to anything else. Do you know what I mean? It's a mixture of different things, probably a bit of punk in there, isn't there? A little bit of new wave, I suppose you could say. There's all different sort of elements, isn't there, from different.
It's definitely
genres.
Because they if you saw them, you'd think they were just a band from the 80s, like Boy George Culture Club. They look like that kind of a band, really, from the 80s, new wave, new romance.
New romance.
Very. Yeah, and obviously Alex Winter is part of the gang. Is his character Marco? Is that his character's name? Is he Marco? Can't remember which character he plays now.
He's in it. I think this is his first debut role, wasn't it? Before he did Bill and Ted. But yeah, he turns up. He's great, isn't he? And the other thing is that even though they don't have many lines, the other vampires, but they've each got their own individual personality, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? It's just they do stand out. And I think they're great. They're just so cool, aren't they?
They don't. That's what's creepy about them, is that, and really cool about them at the same time, actually, is that they don't really say a lot. They don't speak very much at all, really. They don't need to.
I think less is more, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, totally.
It just makes it more sinister.
So, I love this bit where they go on the bike ride, and he's trying to keep up with them desperately, and then it gets really, really foggy, and he kind of falls off his bike a little bit, and he's really annoyed. He wants to fight David. He says, just you, and this is where he starts falling for them. Like, maybe they do want to be my buddies. Maybe I could be friends. Maybe I could be in their gang. He says to them, do you want to come back to our sort of cave? It's like a hotel, isn't it, underground?
Yeah, that's it. It's where the was it San Andreas fault line, wasn't it? It sucked the hotel in. And I think it's a great set as well, because it just adds to their aesthetic of how they look, and they fit right in with this cave, don't they? Do you know what I mean? It's just awesome how it all sort of ties in together. And then I think David comes to, how far are you wanting to go, Michael?
I know. He's like, what?
I think because Kiefer Sutherland, I saw his interview, and he just said he tied it up. He said, my character has the best final words to the conversation. I have the final sentence. So he cut out all the other conversation. He just comes out and says the last bit. I guess that's it, really, isn't it? He just has the great lines at the end, really, and it just works really well.
Yeah, and he's the leader for a reason, you know. And he sort of, again, we're lured into this false sense of security. He says to Michael, "Would you like something to eat?" I think he gives him a bit of some marijuana. He says an appetizer, and he says, you know, have something to eat, you know. And so obviously he starts eating this rice. And he says, "How are the maggots?"
Brilliant scene. Yeah. I mean,
he looks down and
rice, Mike. And it's very clever, is it? Because it's almost like The Boy That Cried Wolf. He's playing on him, isn't it? Because then, like I say, you got the noodles. How'd you like your worms? They're not worms, Michael. They're noodles, you know, like that. And so I suppose when it gets to the bit where he's about to drink the blood, and he says it's blood, it's like, say, The Boy That Cried Wolf. Yeah, sure it is. It's a very good way that they've tricked him into it, isn't it?
Yeah, because you know, he's like, "I'm sorry." He apologised. He said, "Sorry, I'm just mucking around. I shouldn't have done that. Have some drink." And that's where Michael drinks this red wine, has a bit of a trance. It gets all a bit dreamlike now, doesn't it? We get "Cry Little Sister" come back in now, which is just a great song to play over this whole trancey bit now. And this is where they go to the bridge.
Yeah, I thought it's
a
little bit of a Stand By Me reference here. Do you know what I mean? With the bridge and the railway.
Yeah, I would think that, actually. Keep Sutherland, a train, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they want to play Dare, like Truth or Dare. Well, not Truth or Dare, but some kind of Dare game. And they say, you know, jump down off of here. And Michael's like, into what? And it's foggy, so you can't see what's down there. And they all, one by one, they all go, woohoo, and jump down.
Yeah.
And in the end, Michael can hear them still talking. And it turns out they've all sort of grabbed onto the underside of this railway bridge. So he, peer pressure, I guess, he kind of climbs down with them and hangs down below with them. And they're all like, this is fun, this is great. And then a train starts going over, and it's obviously vibrating the whole bridge and the whole railway track. And one by one, they all just let go.
Yeah. And he just falls in. And again, they don't really give anything away here, do they? Just whether he dies or what. But the other thing is, what's clever here is that they're doing what teenagers do as well, isn't it? I'm not saying hanging off bridges as such, but it's kind of the menacing thing you used to do as a kid, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? And I just like the way they've tied that in with this as well. Even though even though they are vampires, they are still doing the things that teenagers do. So I kind of like that. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
And I think that's why this film works so well and really affects both you and I and anyone else who's a fan of it, is that there's not really, like you just said, they are just acting like teenagers really, more than they are acting like vampires. Vampires are just a part of their backstory, but they're doing naughty things, like they're getting thrown off the carousel, you know, they're getting asked to leave the video store because they've been a bit naughty, they're hanging off bridges and doing things they know they should be doing, they're racing their motorbikes. They're teenager boys, really, more than they are vampires.
This is it, and I think this is a very clever thing with this film, because it's almost to the point where you don't think you're watching a vampire movie, but you are, but it's not in your face. And everything up until now with VHS, guys in the comic book store, the Frog Brothers, motorbikes, music, and all that sort of stuff. I think this is where you and I love this movie as kids, is because you could relate to it and go, man, this is everything we're doing. I mean, I wasn't riding a motorbike at that age, but it's stuff that you could relate to in some ways. So it had that real draw, and takes you back to those good times as well, I guess, in a way. Not hanging off a railway bridge, just to please anybody listening to this, please stay away from the railway bridges. I'm not promoting that at all, but
please, listeners.
Yeah, but. Yeah.
Well, this is where the film kind of gets a bit really supernatural now, because Michael wakes up in his bed, and it's like 3 PM. He slept through the whole day. Sunlight is hurting, so he puts his sunglasses on. We know as an audience, we think, hang on a minute, we know what's up. He doesn't really know what's going on, and his mum's on the phone to him, and she's sort of saying, it's 3 o'clock. Why are you still in bed? And
yeah. I was just going to say, Dan, though, but there's one person that knows, isn't there? Grandpa. Because hasn't he got his he's got some binoculars on or something, and he's just sort of peering outside the door, looking at Michael, going, I think I know what's happened to him, but I'm not going to tell anybody.
Also, he says to him, doesn't he? Isn't this the scene where he says, "I wasn't the only one that got lucky last night"? Or was that a bit later on? Or maybe that's a bit later.
No, I think that was it. Yeah, that's it.
Well, this is where he says he's going on a date with the Widow Johnson. Now, the clever thing about Grandpa is, obviously, once you've seen this movie, you realise that he actually knows about the vampires. But there's a lot of little bits throughout the movie that hint at that. And one of the bits that I noticed really only on this watch for this chat with you is that he's got a load of wooden stakes on his truck.
That's right.
And I'd never noticed that before.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, he's...
Why haven't I noticed that before?
That's right. It's very clever as well. It's not in your face, is it? But he is... I suppose he is kind of like a bit of a Van Helsing character, isn't he? Because he's setting up the stakes, getting everything ready. But yeah. But again, Dan...
And what's funny, actually, we should probably mention... Sorry, carry on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's... again, that's a good thing about it. The more time... You see different stuff on repeat viewing, don't you? Do you know what I mean? Which is clever about his films as well, you know. But sorry, mate, what was you going to say?
I was just going to say, actually, on a tangent, we talked about Buffy earlier, and actually, I've just realised that Kiefer Sutherland's in this, and his dad was the vampire hunter in the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie.
Yeah, of course he was.
Wasn't he? Donald Sutherland was in that, yeah. So I've just realised that. There's a little connection there, father and son.
In fact, it just jogged my memory, because Buffy was actually a movie, wasn't it, before the TV show, wasn't it? With... Was it Luke Perry?
Yeah, with Kirsty Swanson.
Luke Perry was in that. Was it Luke Perry?
Luke Perry as well.
One of the Perry brothers, wasn't it? But yeah, no, he was, wasn't he? Old Donald Sutherland.
And I think Pee Wee Herman as well was in that. I think.
Okay.
So we get our first sort of scene of almost attack, really, in the house, because the motorcycles turn up outside the house at night, and we know that they're coming for Michael. For Michael. Michael's not sure what's going on. Sam's quite scared. Lots of wind blowing through the house, lights shining in and out, motorcycle noise, and it's all very scary. Michael feels quite sick, and the motorcycles go. Sam decides to go and chill out in the bath, and we get this brilliant scene where him is singing in the bath. It's a bit Ferris Bueller, isn't it, this scene?
Yeah, that's it. I ain't got the do.
Ain't got a band.
That's it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
He's having a great time. Little do we know that his big brother downstairs, is starting to feel the hunger, and he starts slowly making his way up the stairs to. Basically, he's going to eat his brother. He's going to suck his brother's blood. Yeah. Luckily, their dog attacks Michael and stops him from getting his brother. His brother doesn't really know what's going on, so he runs downstairs. Michael's been bitten by the dog, and this is where he stands up and he says, "I don't know why the dog would bite you. He's never bitten you." And they see his reflection in the mirror, and it's starting to fade, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got like a ghostly figure, isn't he, in his reflection, isn't he? Which is very clever. And and that's it. He says, "You're a goddamn vampire, Michael, isn't it? Wait till Mum comes home, isn't it?" Like.
That is one of the best lines. Yeah. Wait till Mum gets home. That is such a threat that brothers do to each other. It's so funny. And
again, like I said earlier, it's a relatable thing, isn't it? Because you know, with your parents and stuff, you're thinking, "Oh my God," something we can all relate to, isn't it? Like that. So yeah.
But Corey Haim's reaction is brilliant as well, because he's not scared, he's just angry straight away. He's like, "Oh, you're a creature of the night. My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire." Straight away, he's just angry with him for being a vampire, not scared.
Yeah, it's
hilarious.
It's almost like he's saying his brother was something else the week before that. Do you know what I mean? It's just a regular thing with my brother. Do you know what I mean? Goddamn, Michael, he's a werewolf last week. This week, you're a goddamn vampire. What the hell's going on?
He doesn't know what to do, does he, Sam? So who are you going to call? He calls the Frog Brothers.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And he lets them know, and they're not surprised at all. You know, they know all about the vampires in the area, and I think they end the conversation with, "You're probably going to have to kill your own brother."
This is it. I was just about to say, Dan, they just go straight for the kill, don't they? So what should I do? Get yourself a large wooden stake and chuck it straight through his heart. That's it. You got to kill your brother. Okay.
I think they ask him about the bad breath as well, the fingernails and stuff like that.
Yeah, they go
They're
through
like checking off a list of, has he got this? No, has he got that yet? Okay, that's fine.
Oh man, that's it. And then they said, if you can't do it, we'll come round, we'll do it for you.
And I believe them.
They would, yeah. Get on their BMX bikes and
Do you think
come
then?
round.
Do you think that they've actually killed vampires? Because if Grandpa knows about it, and he may well kill vampires, do you think the backstory to them is perhaps that they have killed vampires then?
That's a very good question, actually. Something I've never actually thought of until you asked me now is a backstory to the Frog Brothers. I don't know.
Because we should probably talk about the fact there's 2 sequels to The Lost Boys, both starring Corey Feldman.
I've never seen them.
And he plays the Frog Brothers in them both.
Is there anything in that to say that they have before this movie? Do they bring up a sort of potential?
Not really. No, they just become badass vampire killers off the back of this movie. But there's nothing really in it to say that they've done it in the past. It's just something to think about, isn't it? That they go out and about or I like to think they're just full of shit and they're just saying all this, and then eventually they realise that actually they really are vampires, so they just have to. But they're just brave enough to deal with them. Maybe, I don't know. I think
I would say possibly not, because judging by the way they deal with it later on, they're kind of like shit scared, aren't they? Really, they try to be tough, but I reckon this is their first proper job. Yeah, I'd say. Yeah,
I agree with you. Well, Michael wakes up on the ceiling, doesn't he? Now he's floated up to the ceiling, and it's quite a comical scene actually. This now.
Yeah, this is it. He's up on the ceiling. Could you imagine that? Just waking up in the middle of the night and you're sort of on the ceiling. That would be like, what the hell?
Yeah, but even worse than he accidentally drifts out the window and he's in danger of floating off because he can't control this flying power that he's got. So he manages to grab Sam's window and pull himself in through Sam's window, which Sam's on the phone to Mum at this point, and he starts screaming into the phone.
That's right.
And
she's on a date, isn't she, with Max?
What's going on?
She's
on the date with Max in the restaurant.
Yeah, he's just sipping on a bit of Chardonnay, and then she's just run out. Oh my God! Yeah.
What's all that screaming? Michael, he's trying to kill me. He's coming in the window. Oh my God! Oh my God! And she's like, oh my God! And she just puts the phone down and just goes straight home, like a really good mum. She just comes straight home, like, sod this. I'm going home.
She doesn't say nothing to Max, does she? She's like, oh, Max, I've got to go home. I've got an emergency. No, that's it. Straight to the car.
When just before she gets home, the brothers sort of agree that we'll work this out. We don't have to tell Mum what's going on. So there's this bond between them. So when she gets home, Sam then changes the story and says, sorry, I was just reading a comic book and I got a bit scared. She's like, all of that screaming from a comic book?
Oh dear.
And this is where we get to see again another little glimpse really of this seedy underbelly. There's a milk carton in the kitchen with Laddie, the child vampire who hangs out with David, and he's on the back of the milk carton, isn't he?
That's right. God damn, it's the attack of any monster.
He's terrifying. Later on when he changes and he's like screaming at them, he's terrifying.
Yeah. I think that actually terrified me when I was a kid, actually. Watching this, I thought I didn't expect that part to happen.
He comes flying out of the bed or something, doesn't he? Like everything's just flying all around him.
I know we get back, but it's almost like as he comes up, there's like a vacuum of all the bed sheets getting torn apart. It's a crazy scene, but I can't work out how that's happening.
It is kind of weird. So garlic now is my next note. And this is because Sam says, Mum, can I sleep in with you tonight? She's like, yeah, did you have pizza? Because, there's a really strong smell of garlic. And he's underneath his dressing gown. Yeah. He's got like a massive bunch of garlic around his neck, hasn't he?
I'm just wondering where he gets all that garlic from. Because...
it's probably Grandpa. Grandpa's probably got it.
Where do you find that much garlic? Do you know what I mean?
I know. I've only ever got 1 or 2 garlic bulbs in my house. I would never have a ring of garlic like that. But if I ever find a ring of garlic like that in my house, I'll know something's going wrong.
But even later on, when they're preparing for the final battle, he's got like a massive bag of garlic. I've never seen a massive bag of garlic like that in
Yeah,
any grocery
they
store.
pour it all in the bath, don't they?
Yeah, it's like a potato sack full of garlic. I just thought, man.
That's a lot of garlic there.
Oh, dear.
We get a scene that will trick you for the first time you've seen this movie, where Max, who we know has had a bit of a run-in with the vampires in his video store, he seems to get attacked on his way home, and in fact there's a kite that sort of smashes down near him, and it's like a kite in the shape of a bat.
Yeah.
So it's a good trick for the audience, that one, just to set you on the wrong path, just so you don't suspect him. I always really like that. I think that's quite cool.
Yeah, I almost thought that you was going to get your next kill scene here. I thought maybe Max was going to get killed or something like that.
That's what, yeah, exactly. You
Maybe
expect it, but they break the pattern, don't they? And he doesn't die.
No.
Yeah. Michael heads back to the cave, the lair, and he speaks to Star, and he says, what's happening to me? She's like, oh, it's not really for me to say, but it's pretty obvious he's turning into a vampire. She's like, oh, you shouldn't be here, and then they end up almost getting it on, really, at this point, don't they?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what he wanted, really. He's kind of fancied her, so there we go. Mum asks Michael what's wrong when he gets home. She basically, this whole scene is that whole "are you on drugs" scene, but she doesn't say it. And she's a really good mum in this scene. She doesn't ask him anything specific, like "are you on drugs" or anything like that. She just says, "What's going on? You're always wearing sunglasses. You can talk to me about anything, anytime you want." So it's a really nice mother and son scene, this one a bit. He obviously doesn't want to talk to her.
She knows how to build a bridge to her son, doesn't she, as a character, without actually having to say it. So yeah, it's some good parenting there, isn't it? She's makes herself approachable, doesn't she?
It's a very special scene, and I think it's an underrated little bit of dialogue in this movie, really. And it just goes to show how close they are as a family.
And I forgot to mention her, actually. She's a great actress as well, isn't she? Is it Diane Weist? Yeah, she does a great job
Diane
in this. Yeah, she does a great job in this.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, this cast is brilliant all the way through, really. And even Grandpa Bernard Hughes, I don't really know him from anything other than this, but like we've said, he kind of steals the show a little bit in this one as well. But they're all great in this. Max, everybody in it. Really,
it's funny you say
punching.
that, Dan, about Grandpa, because I thought the same thing actually. Because I was going to look on his IMDb, but I didn't. So I thought, nah, we'll just keep him as Grandpa. I'm not.
Yeah, he's just Grandpa.
He will just always be Grandpa.
Mum goes to visit Max, and she wants to say sorry about leaving him in the restaurant that night. But she gets there, and his dog, Thorn, dog, isn't it?
That's it.
The dog attacks Mum. She sort of chases Mum, and she just about gets away from him, but he starts coming through the gate, actually. So that's pretty.
And the other thing
scary
here
stuff,
I've noticed is that it's almost like this film runs in chronological order to how Sam's reading his comic books. Because when he's in the store, it says "destroy all vampires," and then when he gets this comic, it's about the was it the Hellhounds or something like that?
Yeah, I think he's reading a bit called Dracula and the Hounds of Hell, and then it cuts back to her being chased by the dog. So you're right, actually. I've not thought about that.
That kind of story falls in as a comic book story to how he's reading it. So, whether that's been done on purpose or possibly, I don't know. But yeah, it's cool. Yeah, so. But again, you don't pick up on whether he is the bad guy here, do you? I'm going back to when I first watched this. You can't. They're not. It's kind of giving you a little bit away here, isn't it? As a guessing game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even in the second or third time you watch this, you'll pick up. There'll still be things that you might forget from the first viewing of it. You kind of just let yourself go into that world, don't you? And you're there with the characters. But Yeah, there's so many. The more I think about this film, the more I love it. Actually, now you're saying this about the comic book, I'm gonna have to go back and watch this again now and look out for all the moments that Sam's reading in the comic book and see how that ties in.
Yeah. But this is the thing about this film, because now we're talking about it, we pick up on it, don't we? So it's really clever filmmaking, isn't it, and story writing and everything. So there's so much depth to this film. But at the same time,
Yeah, totally.
it moves at a very quick pace, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's not dragging anywhere at any point. It's just moving very fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the next scene is Sam goes to visit the Frog Brothers, and this is where they sort of say, well, you need to kill the head vampire, really. Otherwise, your brother will become a creature of the night forever. That kind of stuff. And this is where Max shows up at their house. There is some tension between Michael and Max. Partly because Max implies that he thinks it's because she's just in the middle of a divorce from their dad, but obviously I don't know if Michael knows that or consents that Max is a vampire. I don't know, but there's definitely tension between them.
Yeah, because he opens the door up, doesn't he? And then
that's when
Max says, "Well, you're the man of the house, and you're going to invite me in." So I guess at this point, if you know a little bit about vampires, isn't it? You think, well, vampires need to be invited in. Much like Jerry Dandridge in Fight Night, isn't it?
Where he's in the chair, where Jerry Dandridge is in the chair, and
Yeah. In fact, Charlie, I think I'm going to come over quite a bit. In fact, quite often. Whenever I like. That's great.
Shit. Well, this next scene, this next dinner scene is quite funny because Lucy's invited Max over for dinner, but at the same time Sam's like, "Oh, did I not tell you that the Frog Brothers are having dinner with us?" She's like, "Well, no, you didn't mention that, but okay, I guess I can make dinner for everybody." So there's like so many people sat at this dinner table, but this is their chance now, because they suspect Max of being the head vampire, and kind of get that double bluff later on. So they trick him now. So they replace all of the salt with garlic, don't they? Yeah. No, the parmesan with garlic.
But you hate garlic, don't you? No, I like garlic. There's just a lot of it.
I like it. It's not this much.
Oh dear.
And they throw water on him as well.
Yeah, down his
holy water.
Lights off, isn't it? Turn back on again. Face, mirror in your face, isn't it? Whoa. Imagine that.
And Max gets he actually gets pissed off, and he just kind of leaves. He said, "I think I'm going to go now." And Mum's like, "Why the hell have you been acting like this?" Obviously, she can't understand it. So he kind of leaves, and he says, "Look, we'll try this one more time." He kind of gives it like that. He says, "We'll try a third date tomorrow night. Just come to my house. I'll cook dinner. No one else there. We'll try another date then." Because so far those two have had no luck with their date. But obviously, I guess his goal is to suck her blood and turn her into a vampire. Maybe.
That's
so
right.
I don't know.
That's turn into a vampire. Yeah. To get into the family. That's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
Well, Michael confronts David now and says, "Where's Star?" And he says, "Come with me, and I'll, if you ever want to see Star again, come and watch this." So they go to this beach party where they're listening to Run DMC, Walk This Way, and there's a bunch of people sort of dancing around a campfire on the beach. And this is where the first time now we get to see the vampires sort of vamp out, isn't it? So their faces transform.
And it's a real gothic scene, isn't it? It's a real gothic scene, smoke. You've got the ambience of the fire and all that, haven't you? So it's a real... Again, it's got that aesthetic to it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's awesome. And it says, "You know what we are."
Well, I mean, at this point, Michael suspects that he's turning into a vampire and that they are vampires, but it's now that they fully reveal to him what they're capable of. And they just massacre that entire party that's on the beach, don't they?
It's very much like the attack scene in From Dusk Till Dawn, kind of on a smaller scale, but you do get this is probably the most violence and horror that you get in the movie here, isn't it? At this point, of get throats slashed, don't you? Heads torn apart. Yeah. It's quite a gruesome scene.
There's a bit where they bite into someone's skull, which just looks so painful.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's very.
It's total bloodlust, essentially, because they're laughing as they do it, and Michael tries to fight it, and he doesn't join in. He manages to not join in. And he says to him that this is the classic line now that David says to him. He says, you can sleep all day, you can party all night, but you never grow old, you never die, but you must feed.
Yeah, that's it.
And
what a line.
He thinks, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Star and wants to talk to Michael, and she basically, this is where she tells him that her and Laddie, the little boy, aren't full vampires. They're kind of only half turned at the moment. And she doesn't really want to be part of this club, this group anymore. So we get a little bit more to them, and Michael, I think this is where Michael decides he's going to try to rescue and save Star and Laddie, which they do in a little bit of time. They don't want to go full vampire. Absolutely. You never go full vampire, man.
Yeah, that's it. But just going back to what David said, though, is that I don't think, again, this is probably one of the first times I've ever heard a vampire actually betray what he does himself. Do you know what I mean? So in other movies, vampires turn up and they, suck your blood, that they turn you into a vampire, they seduce you. But this is the film where the lead vampire comes out and says, this is what I do as a vampire. Never grow old, sleep all night, all that sort of stuff. And he's kind of given you a description of what he is. But I don't think I've ever heard that in any other sort of Hammer horror movie or anything like that. So again, it's another.
Yeah, it's just the vampire never says it, do they? Normally, no. It's like you said. It's Peter Cushing in a Hammer movie that says it. These creatures of the night. Of course they have to feed so that they can be immortal. But the vampire themselves would never say that.
I like the way Jack Grace says it in Vampires. Use garlic. These things will bend you fucking over. He says, you want to kill it? You get a large spoon steak, chuck it straight through his fucking heart.
I love that movie. It's so bad, it's good. It's so bad.
Oh, and sunlight turns them into crispy critters. God, he's a badass, Jack Christ. Oh dear.
Well, talking of badasses, the Frog Brothers show up in the morning, and Michael drives them all out to the vampire lair. Although they say, we don't ride with vampires. Or is that a bit later on? Either way, that they do say that at some point, which is brilliant. But
that's right, yeah, because there's just a little bit there, Dan, just going back to earlier, because you get the car, don't you? You get the Chevrolet, the boot blue Chevrolet. It's Grandpa's car, isn't it? And you get that bit where...
That's right, he borrows Grandpa's car.
Grandpa's car. Let's go to town. Okay, starts it up. Okay, Grandpa, let's go. And he just starts it, gives it a ref, and then just turns it off, and he goes, that's just about as far to town as I like to go.
Yeah, they steal that truck, don't they?
Steal it, yeah, that's it.
To go off and do their vampire hunting. Grandpa's unhinged, man.
Oh, Dan, another thing I noticed, right? So, the Frog Brothers, don't they? They go to the church, don't they, to get the holy water? Is that right? Or was that afterwards? Oh no, sorry, I'm jumping forwards.
No, sorry. This is this bit now. This is the bit now, really, where they go to the. Oh no, you are right. That you are. Yeah, that's a little bit later on. But yeah, go on.
It's all right. No, okay. So when they go to that church, I know I'm jumping forward here, but there's a bit when they go in. Everybody turns around and looks at them, including the parson, vicar, padre, guy at the altar. And they look and they stop, right? And I thought, I've seen this scene before. And do you remember, you've seen House of Wax, 2005? Yeah. There's a bit where they go into the church and everybody turns around, but they turn into wax. I just thought, it looks like the same scene. Just an observation.
So I wonder if they homage the Lost Boys in that then.
That's just what I thought. So there you go. It's me just another thing that I noticed, that was all. So next time you watch it, check it out. I'll see if I can try and do what I'll do is I'll do a screenshot, and then I'll do a screenshot of House of Wax, and I'll just put it on the page, see if there's a comparison.
Yeah, we'll see if they compare.
I'll do
side by side.
I'll do some R.J. McCready investigation.
R.J. McCready investigates.
I know I'm human. I'm going to find out who's who.
Oh, that
Oh,
goddamn
dear.
thumbs up every time.
Sorry. Just want to go to my shack and get drunk. It's just going to take long, Fuchs. Sorry, mate. Oh, dear.
Well, the Frog Brothers and Michael and David all go to the lair, the vampire lair, and he says, we've got to stake them all.
Oh, yeah,
So they go in there, and this is quite scary, actually. They do manage to kill one of the vampires. They kill Alex Winter and Marco.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, as soon as they stake him, he wakes up, starts screaming. But we should probably talk about this. I've never seen vampires hanging upside down before, have you? Until this movie.
No, I can't. No, I can't think of that. The only not vampire, but the only time I've seen this is in the '89 Batman with Michael Keaton hanging upside down as a bat.
Oh yeah.
But as vampires, no, I don't think so. And the other thing I was going to say with this bit is the blood. The blood it's not like pure red blood, is it? It comes out. It's got a very. I think they said in the special effects they added glitter to the blood.
That's right. I
So
read that as well to make it seem a little bit more supernatural, sparkly. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, like I say, the blood is just it's very sort of pink. It almost looks like the Blob, if you know what I mean. The same sort of colour, sort of very pink.
Yeah, that kind of pinky ooze, or the Ghostbusters 2 ooze.
Oh yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There you go. So that's it.
Yeah, it's a great scene because they're looking around and they can smell the vampires, because they smell of death. They can't see them, and it's right at the end that they look up and they can see them all hanging, and that's where they're like, because they're kids, they're like, and they're like, shh, wake them up. He's like, you can't wake them up. They're asleep. They're fine. Let's get out there and kill them. And he's like, first come, first staked.
Well, this is it, and I think this is what you said earlier on. You said have these guys, have the Frog Brothers ever killed vampires? But he's got no hesitation, has he, to kill this vampire? He just does it.
So I wonder if they have.
Just boom. There's no sort of, oh my god, this is my first time. A little bit of trepidation. It's just, nah, that's it. Boom. I know what I'm doing. So, yeah.
Well, like I said, unfortunately, they all wake up and David, or one of them, screams at them, "You're dead meat!" which is terrifying. So they they have to start running as quickly as they can.
Yeah.
They try and get out the tunnel into daylight, and David is grabbing at their ankles, but his hand catches on fire a little bit. A little bit of trivia about that scene where his hand catches on fire. Do you know about that?
No.
Scene?
No. What's that?
So when he pulls his hand back, a single tear rolls down his cheek.
Right.
Which we assume is because his hand was burnt, but actually it's because his contact lenses were really hurting him that day. But they kept that tear in because they said it goes so well with that scene. So if you look carefully, you'll see that scene. Kiefer Sutherland has a big tear rolling down his cheek, and that's because his contact lenses were really irritating him.
I was going to say about that. I noticed that. I thought maybe they did that on purpose just to show a little bit of an emotion, which I like. You know what I mean? I think that's good. Just a bit
it
of
works.
Character development in some ways. But yeah, you're dead, mate. That's it. The war's on.
It's
now,
horrible,
isn't it?
that bit.
Oh yeah, that's it. Now
It's really scary.
The battle commences, doesn't it? It's just a.
Well, yeah. So they rescued Star and Laddie, and they all go back to Grandpa's. The dog's going nuts because the dog can sense that there's Nanook, isn't it? Their dog.
That's it. Yeah, great.
The dog can sense that there's like some crazy supernatural stuff going on here. Grandpa doesn't really seem to suspect anything, but actually we kind of understand later on that he kind of knows everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And Sam tells Mum that Santa Carla's crawling with vampires.
Yeah.
It's crawling with vampires, Mum. Does she believe him? No, she doesn't. Of course she doesn't believe him.
Because she
this is our battle scene now.
Yeah, she thinks it's all crime wolf again, isn't she? So she's kind of just, that's it. And then that's
he set himself up for a fall because he's already she's told him off a couple of times for reading comic books late at night, horror comic books, and he had to pretend that all that screaming from earlier was because he was scared. And there's that great scene where I love the scene where he says, "Oh, Mum, can you close the closet door?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I know. Remember, you can't sleep with the closet door open." And then she says, "In fact, I'll tell you the reason me and your father are getting a divorce is because he didn't believe in the closet monster either."
That's
and it's
right.
quite a sweet moment.
That's it, and it's got a cool room as well because you've got pictures of 80s icons in there as well, haven't you? Like Rob Lowe. I think you've got Molly Ringwald hanging up, which just sort of sets the scene for 1987 as well, doesn't it?
And all of Grandpa's taxidermy that he keeps bringing him every day.
That's a bit weird, isn't it? Oh, gosh.
He gives him like a beaver, some bird, and he just keeps putting it all into his cupboard. So every time he opens his cupboard, there's just more and more dead stuffed animals in there, which is really weird.
That's not the sort of beaver I want to be waking up to in the morning.
Well, funny enough, I think of that scene in Naked Gun where she goes up the ladder and he looks up and he says, "Nice beaver." She says, "Oh, thanks. I've just had it stuffed."
Oh, mate, I tell you, it's another movie you have to do for Bite Size, I think, mate. Naked Gun. Oh,
I'll tell you what, Naked Gun is an absolute classic, isn't it? It's hilarious. I'm not sure. I haven't watched it in years. I'm not sure how it holds up, but so funny.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look at that. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, that's it.
So our heroes now prepare for battle. This is where you said they get the holy water, the sack of garlic, you know, and Corey Feldman does that classic now where he says, "I think I should warn you all that when a vampire bites it, it's never a pretty sight. No two bloodsuckers go out the same way. Some yell and scream, some go quietly, some explode, some implode, but all will try and take you with them." And it's like the craziest thing to say, and I just love it so much.
Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it?
And actually, he predicts it, and I only know this from reading the trivia. He predicts what's going to happen because David does go out silently. He doesn't scream when he dies. Others scream as they die. One of them implodes into the pipes, and all the blood squirts out, and another one of them explodes. So he kind of predicts how they're all going to die. Actually.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of giving you that's clever. Yeah. So it is.
Yeah, it is very clever.
It is a different death from each scene, isn't it? Yeah.
Really cool now. So yeah, they get their water pistols full of holy water. They've got the house is all ready for action, and the bikers turn up as we knew they would, and they smash in through the walls. And it gets really. This is probably the most horror that this film gets really now, because the house is all dark. The vampires are stalking around the house in the shadows. The boys are they're all in the individual rooms in the house taking on different vampires, and this is a really, really horror movie moment really now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day everybody talking about the scene with the bath.
That was just what I was about to say actually. That's a great scene. He says something like death breath or something, doesn't he? And he throws him in the bath.
That was the talking point at school for us. That was, everybody was talking about that scene of him coming out of the bath. It's just great. Yeah,
because they throw him in the bath, then he comes back out, and then eventually he melts into like a skeleton with fangs, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's almost
into
like, again, it's almost like the blood knows what it's doing, if you know what I mean. So it's going through the pipe work and it's sort of blowing itself out. It's almost like the blood is almost like...
comes out. Yeah, it bursts out all the pipes and the sinks and everything, doesn't it?
You sort of think there must be something controlling that, like a sort of entity that's still there or something. I don't know, it's clever. It's when you think about it, these are vampires which you probably haven't really seen before in a vampire movie, isn't it? Up until now. Doing different things, changing the rules a little, just slightly.
I also like the fact that actually it's Nanook, the dog, that pushes the vampire into the bath, because that dog's a bit of a hero as well.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I always love a heroic dog.
It's where Lassie turns up.
Sam, there's a line here that I never caught until again this review, and this is where Sam fires an arrow at one of the vamps, and we get that famous death by stereo he goes flying into the stereo and dies. And one of the Frog Brothers says, "Well done, Sambo," or something like that. So he changes the Rambo name. It's like he calls him Sambo because of the arrow. Really? And I assume that's what they were saying with that for. And I thought, I've never noticed that before. That's pretty cool.
Okay, to be honest with you, I never really noticed that.
I wonder if that's because they said to them, act like Rambo, act like Sylvester Stallone off camera. So maybe they just threw that in there.
Chucking a little bit of an Easter egg there from another movie. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But like you say, mate, it's just so much going on, isn't there? There's a lot going on in this scene, isn't there? So much to take in.
Yeah, we got the Eddie Munster moment, which you said about, freaked you out as a kid when he bursts out. Star's the only one that never turns, but Laddie does. It's the attack of Eddie Munster. And she's like holding him back. She's like, no, don't. He doesn't mean it. But Laddie's like really trying to get to them, isn't he? He's like a little caged animal. Really good acting from this kid, actually. Yeah,
he is, but he's also scared as well, isn't he? As a vampire as well. I don't know. It's almost like he sort of hides in the corner, doesn't he? Or and he backs off a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He's like a little animal, a little dog.
Right.
Michael and David, they kind of start having this fight downstairs now. They vamp out, so they get their full vamp faces now. Yeah. And we get this whole fight, and David says, "My blood is in your veins," and Michael says, "And mine is in yours." And he ends up killing him on some the good old grandpa's taxidermy. Saves the day.
Like some deer antlers or something like that, isn't
nice.
it? And then again, you get the Quiet Little Sister, don't you? Sort of song, isn't it? Sort of.
Yeah, that's right. It just comes back in, doesn't it? And we assume that's it, because we assume that David was the head vampire, and we think, oh, thank God for that, it's all over. Mm-hmm. There's actually a little bit more to go, really.
That's it.
Mum gets home with Max.
That's it. And then this is where Max comes out, then he goes, well, actually, I can explain all of this, isn't it? And he's this whole plan to lure Michael into the family, isn't it? And then he turns into a vampire, and he comes out with my best line, he goes, "But I still love you, Lucy."
He basically wants her to become mother to the Lost Boys. And yeah, like you said, a big happy vampire family, which is obviously not what Sam and Michael and their mum want. I think, in fact, who says the blood-sucking Brady Bunch? It's probably Corey Feldman that says that. It's got to be, hasn't it? He says the blood-sucking Brady Bunch.
Yeah, I think it is him, actually, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Michael fights Max. But Max is very, very strong, so he's the head vampire. But thank God for Grandpa, because Grandpa saves the day by crashing his truck in through the wall, and all the sort of stakes that are on the truck go flying off through and kill Max.
That's right, because you get the horn, didn't you? And just see how they clever they turn that chime into like the carousel music from the beginning. And it's almost like they're sort of what you have at the beginning with the carousel is what you have at the end, and it just sort of falls into that bit, and then the stake comes out, doesn't it? And it goes straight through.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah. So, yeah, just a bit I noticed, because I think Gav said this to me. He said there's, where he does his filmmaking and stuff, he said, film should always start with something from the beginning and then at the end, and that kind of like ties over. So the carousel, but you've got the music and everything, it just sort of ties it all together. So again, it's just such a clever film, isn't it? When you look, when you start looking at this film, like we were reviewing it and stuff, picking out things like that.
It's not just a vampire movie at the end of the day. You might think that if you haven't seen it, but there's a lot more to it than that. It's very layered. There's a lot of stuff to do with family, and they deal with divorce and family and stuff as well, like that. But they also deal with the closeness of family. They deal with moving to a new area, fish out of water. There's a lot of comedy in it as well.
Yeah.
It's just really clever, really.
That's it. And then, like I say, we got old Grandpa, then we turn up, didn't it? And this could go either way as well, couldn't it, if you've never seen this film? Because he gets that bottle, and the bottle that he gets out with a red liquid, you could almost think that's blood. Like David's bottle from the hotel when he just
and also he's sort of, well, the other thing for me, the first few times I saw this was because Grandpa was in the shadow. You can't tell if he's been injured or bitten, and he doesn't. Grandpa, are you okay, Grandpa? Grandpa, answer us. He doesn't say, doesn't speak to them for ages. But then eventually he just turns around and says the famous line, "One thing I could never stomach about
Santa Carla.
Santa Carla. Oh, the damn vampires."
And then everybody's sort of gone, mum's just sort of nodding her head and going, oh, everybody's sort of rolling their eyes, aren't they? And then that's it, isn't it? And then that's when you get the Echo and the Bunnymen. And it just closes so well. But at the same time,
it closes with that ding ding
ding ding. People are strange when you're strange.
It's so good. It's so good.
I mean, it's just a great movie. It's just like I say, people listening can hear it in our voices, and there's just some films that I'm just so passionate for this movie. I love it. It does everything I want it to do. I'm never bored with it. It moves at a pace. It just gets you from A to B. Soundtrack's great, and I love all the characters in it. Do you know what I mean? There's not. I don't. This can sound like a criticism, and it's not. But there is standout characters, but everybody is on the line. Do you know what I mean? Everybody does it really well. So that sort of makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Everybody's kind of like their own.
I mean,
kids.
And it's a very big cast as well. The front cover of my DVD and my VHS, it's got pretty much the whole cast on there apart from Grandpa. Everybody's on there, and it's a huge cast, really. But like you said, everybody pulls their weight. There's no weak links in the casting.
Once everybody has their screen time, it's almost like you've got your screen time and it's great. You've got your screen time and it's great. And there's not one character in this I don't think there's got any sort of weak character to it, or I don't like, or anything like that. And there's only there's another film like that, which is, I would say, it's Clue from 1985.
Oh yeah.
All the characters are great. Do you know what I mean? Even the maid and the cook and everybody. It's just like everything seems to work so well with that story, and this is the same. So it's.
I think the magic that Schumacher managed to capture is probably part of it. Is that it's the beginning of all of these guys' careers, and they were really hungry and wanted to really prove themselves. So that's why everybody kind of brought their A game, really. Because although some of them, like Kiefer Sutherland, had been in a couple of movies, this was a big deal for a lot of these guys. A big Hollywood movie and a horror movie. Money being thrown. Well, not a lot of money, but there was money being made. Schumacher was somebody that had done St. Elmo's Fire. He knew how to deal with young teenage cast as well, so he's probably quite good at dealing with that kind of situation as well. So it's definitely magic. This movie, there's lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it is, and I don't know anybody that doesn't like this film.
I mean, as soon as you post up you're watching this on Facebook, you get so many people. Oh, classic. Oh, this is fantastic. Oh, that movie's brilliant. I love it. Like you said, I don't know anybody that dislikes it.
Even non-horror fans love this movie. And I think it's like we said earlier, it's not just a horror film. It is a horror film, but it's not, is it? It's got other things in it which other people can relate to. With parenting, being a teenager, growing up, friendship, all that sort of stuff. It's all there, isn't it, for everybody, really? Told in one.
I think you're right. It's an accessible movie, even for non-horror fans.
Yeah. Even that 80s dude working in a VHS store can relate to this movie. Hell, even I'm sure there was someone watching this film. My God, that's me.
even the oiled up guy with the saxophone can relate to this movie.
Yeah, I wonder if someone in the 80s watched The Lost Boys, saw Max, and thought, you know what, next time I'm going down the video shop to, open it up, I'm going to go down dressed as him.
His clothes are so cool, man.
That's great.
So
again, I can't. Max, I mean, it's a really good. It must be great for that actor as well, because he brought his own to that character as well. Do you know what I mean? Even though he is ultimately the bad guy, but he's got the charm, and everything. Do you know what I mean? It's great.
He's a bit of a geek as well. He's a bit of everything, isn't he?
Yeah. I think the thing is, Dan, it's one of those films where as soon as I bring it up, I get into these conversations like we are now. Do you know what I mean? I know I'm recording a podcast, but the conversation we're having now, we're doing a review, but as soon as I bring this up, and I'm sure you're the same, if you bring it up, if you're down the pub or you're talking to someone about it, you get into it, don't you? Do you know what I mean? You say, oh yeah, this scene, that scene, this quote, and there's so many films, particularly from the 80s, which are like that. Got that sort of magic. It's
I
just
think
good
it's
stuff.
it's just really, really, really well written. I think that's the
I do,
basis of this
yeah.
movie. It's very well written, and then you add in all the elements, whether it's the cast, the score, the look of it.
Yeah.
It's just, like I said, it's lightning in a bottle, and it all worked perfectly.
Yeah.
You
It's
couldn't recreate this if you tried, really.
No, I don't. Yeah, like I say, I don't think I cannot put this film at any sort of high level than it is. It's just great. It's a good film. So
The only movie I would really, really put this in a close proximity to is Fright Night.
yes, yeah, yeah. Again, I think Fright Night's got its own charm as much as Lost
100%.
Boys, and it's also got a different aesthetic to it. I think Fright Night's a little bit more sort of comic book.
Yeah.
But yeah, another great movie. Do you know what I mean? It's and the other film that was kicking around about this time was Vamp. I thought that was
I love
quite
that
good.
movie.
Yeah, I thought that was good. It's just a fun movie, which again come out in the 80s. So, and the other thing I was going to say here was just, could these vampires be the same vampires that you get in from Dusk Till Dawn? Could it be the same universe?
I suppose it could be. I don't see why it couldn't be.
Because you said earlier
Yeah.
that so when is it Edgar Frog, Corey Feldman, when he comes out and says these vampires die differently. So it got me thinking when you talked about that, about From Dusk Till Dawn. So when they have the ultimate showdown, it's like the band, isn't it? Good night, everybody, and fuck you. And they just blow up, didn't they?
And they would just explode.
So they got me thinking. They do exactly that, don't they? Some of them burn up, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, this movie could perhaps be related to. I mean, I wonder if it is related to Buffy. Do you know what I mean? Because I mentioned earlier with Donald Sutherland, and I feel like this could take place in that same universe. Maybe Buffy the Vampire Slayer is down the road in Sunnydale, and she's killing some of these vamps too, because they feel like they could be in Buffy. These bad. You can imagine this gang on motorbikes turning up in an episode of Buffy. You can totally imagine that.
Yeah.
And I can imagine the Frog Brothers being characters in something like Buffy, where they're both like badass teenagers who want to take on, and they're the only ones that can really help Buffy from time to time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just the imagination. So you got my imagination going now. This is the thing with
me
this
too.
film.
That's it. Yeah, I've got me flying on this one now. And the other thing I was going to say was, I reckon Jack Crow is the Frog Brothers' dad.
Yeah.
Well done, son.
I agree. Because you never see, you don't ever see their parents, do you?
No, I think the parents are the two hippies, and they're asleep in the store. Is that them? Or was that
Okay.
possibly?
Yeah, you're probably right. Because I remember somebody telling me years ago that they had a theory that the Frog Brothers' parents were actually dead and they were vampires, and that's why they do what they do.
Oh,
but if that's them asleep in the shop, then that's maybe who they are.
Yeah, I can't remember if that was just fans' theory or something like that, but that would actually make sense. That would be quite a good backstory actually if they were orphan kids looking after themselves or something like that. So probably give them the cause. But yeah, I think there's a bit of a prequel there to be had, maybe with those two guys. You know what I mean?
It's funny about the sequels as well, because there's, Corey Feldman came back as Edgar Frog. Corey Haim came back in the second one as Sam Emerson as well.
Did he? Oh, right.
And Kiefer Sutherland's half brother Angus Sutherland was the vampire in that.
Oh, okay.
And then the third one, Corey Feldman came back, and so did Newlander as Alan Frog. So they got them back in those movies as well. But the only good thing about those two movies is basically Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. There's nothing good about them other than that. They're not great films in any stretch of the imagination.
See, I didn't watch them. I wanted to, but I thought I was just such a fan of the original that, or the first one, I'll just go to that. But yeah, it's I don't know. I don't even think you could remake this film, could you?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't want someone to, because I think that generation of teenagers is unlike any other generation now. You know, teenagers in the noughties are nothing like this group of teenagers with motorbikes and punk haircuts and rock music and comic books. You know, it's just, yeah, I wouldn't want them to even try to remake this. It wouldn't go very well, I don't think.
Yeah, I think, like I say, these films, like you said earlier, it's just lightning in a bottle, isn't it? It's just a one-off. So, but yeah, no, it's great. Is there? So Dan, you know, it's been great chatting to you about this one, buddy. Honestly, mate, I couldn't think of anybody better to have on the show for this. Is there anything more you want to talk about with the Lost Boys? Do you think there's anything we haven't covered?
I think we've covered it all. I think we've sucked every last bit of blood out of this body. It's done.
No, listen,
but
Dan,
thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome, mate. No,
really,
Dan,
really
honestly,
appreciate it.
mate, I mean this, mate. I'm having an absolute ball having you on the show. You know, it's just, as I said earlier, you said about Masters of the Universe, and I said here we are now on episode 5, mate, and it's just continuing, and I'm loving it, mate. So it's absolutely brilliant talking to you about movies, mate. It's great. So, and anybody listening to the show could probably hear it in our voices, you know, just sort of bouncing off each other here. But before I close the show,
like the Frog Brothers.
Oh God, here we are. That's it. Yeah. Pray you never need to call us.
Okay, I'll pray I never need to call you. Sure.
Oh, dear. So, I listened to your latest episode, mate. I thought it was a great episode with podcasts on Haunted Hill. Just going on to that.
Yep.
Forgotten how violent the Candyman was, actually, when you spoke about that. You know, he's talking about some scenes in that. I thought it was quite horrific.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. So, but no, great show, mate. What have you got coming up next, you and Gav?
So our next episode of the podcast on Haunted Hill will be a UFO episode. So we're going to be looking at Fire in the Sky, that classic movie, and also taking a look at a movie called The Fourth Kind with Mila Jovovich from the Resident Evil movies. And that's a really good UFO sort of alien abduction movie. So we're going to switch things up and have a look at some aliens and some UFOs. That'd be cool, man.
A subject matter that scares the shit out of me. Really does.
I remember you mentioning this before, and I think, if I remember rightly, the reason that you think that is the same reason that I do, which is that it's quite plausible, because we have no idea what is out there, do we?
When you think about, so it scares me just as much as Jaws or an alligator down in the sewer, if that makes sense, because they're plausible. Because alligators exist, they could be down in the sewer, sharks are in the water. And I'm going to say it, I think there's something out there. Can't be the only ones in the universe. So it could be plausible.
I agree.
Something like that that's out there. So, and it's something that I always thought was a kid as well. And no one told me that, if that makes sense. No one said about aliens. I just thought there would be, looked up at the stars as a kid and thought, could be something out there and something could come down and get me. And it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, man. And I got freaked out by movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, stuff like
almighty.
That. Even E.T.
E.T. scared the shit out of me as a kid. I got cinema trauma from that.
Yeah, same.
So, yeah. So, that'd be good. Could be a good episode there, man, because I'll be interested to hear what you got to say about that.
Yeah.
Because Fire in the Sky, I don't want to go into this too much because it makes you get to cover it, but I've seen both these movies and I thought they were really good. And again, the DB Cooper.
I bet you like Fire in the Sky. I can imagine that being right up your alley as well.
Yes, because again, it's a well investigated case, and up until this day, I think it's just got a plausible stamp on it. Because they've had the lie detector test and everything like that with it, but like I say, mate, I don't want to go into that because I'll leave that for you guys to talk about on the show. But yeah, no, look forward to that, mate. And I also heard that you was going to be doing John Carpenter as well in a future episode. Quite excited about that.
So in a couple of episodes' time, we're doing our third John Carpenter special. So we're doing, I think it's They Live and Escape from New York. So
fantastic. brilliant
You'll be
films.
listening to that one, I should imagine.
Yes, no, because like I say, mate, I know we talk about films together, but I do like it when I hear you guys talk as a podcast. Do you know what I mean? Does that sort of make sense when you're listening to two other people talking about films? As a listener, I'd like to listen to your, because I think you and Gav sort of bounce off each other in a very good way. Because where Gav's...
Yeah, totally. It's same with me. You know, I love listening to your show and just like listening to you kick back in when you have guests on and chatting about films. And I love the fact you bring so much random trivia to your show as well. Stuff that I would never even know about. You managed to dig up this really weird stuff that I'm like, how did he know that?
Here's the tyre reference for the DeLorean. So now you've got all that trivia, I'll go on to a bite-sized review. But no, it's good, man. Because I mean this as a compliment as well, just going on you and Gav. I do find you guys as a bit of Mulder and Scully, which I think is very good. No, it is. It's very good because you don't... I mean, this isn't a good way, but you don't always agree on stuff, but I think that's good because you're both giving different opinions, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it's good stuff, man. And talking about Gav...
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no. So, talking about Gav, he's actually coming on the show.
Yeah, so he tells me.
I've cast a line, I've hooked him, and he's coming on.
And you talk about Unforgiven, is that right?
Yeah. I said to him, you know, if you want to choose a movie, and he picked Unforgiven, so we're going to take a look at that. So I've forgotten how good that film is because I'd look at it the other night. So yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great movie. Well, you'll have fun talking about that. He's a big fan of westerns as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and that's a good movie to talk about. He's very excited. When I spoke to him the other day, he said he's very excited to discuss that with you. So
yeah,
that'll be fun for you.
And our next episode, mate, look at doing The Princess Bride. And
that's all right. Yeah, we are. We're gonna have three of us on, aren't we? Me, you, and Kate are gonna be on for that one.
Yeah, it's good. It's great news. Spoke to Kate. She private messaged me, and she, you know, it's nice. She said, you know, she's enjoying the show, and she said, you know, would I be able to come onto the show? And I said, you know, absolutely. It's nice for her to say that. So I said, we'll get you on board. And I said to her, how about you come on? You know, me and yourself are doing Princess Bride, and I know she likes that film as well. So, yeah, so it's all good stuff, man. So,
I look forward to that one. That'll be good. So that's where I'm coming back next.
Yeah.
Then is it a bit of Princess Bride?
A bit of Princess Bride, mate.
Oh yeah.
So, so I look forward to that episode. Yeah.
So, as you wish. As they say.
That's it. Yeah. So thanks, Dan. Like I say, mate, I've had a hell of a great time with this. The Lost Boys, you know what I mean? It's just, I'm buzzing right now. So thanks very much for coming on the show, mate. And so yeah, guys, going to close the show for a bit of admin. I'm a proud member of the Legion podcast, so please go and check out all the other shows on Legion, including Dan Show podcast and Haunted Hill. And you can find Bitesize Cinema on YouTube, Spotify, and several other players on the internet if you type in Bitesize Cinema Legion. And I've also got a Facebook page, so post anything on there, any movies or anything you want about movies and discussions and all that sort of thing. So yeah, keep it bite-sized, guys. Keep it safe.
If you enjoyed this show, then make sure you check out the other great shows on the Legion Podcast Network, like Cinema Psyops, Cinema Beef, Devour the Podcast, Duncan and Bo Come Correct, Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, Friday the 13th, Get Slayed, The Hellming Power Hour, Hello, This is the Doom Show, Hero Hero Go Show, Kill the Cast, Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space, Jerry Hates Action, Legion After Dark, Mental Health, Obsessive Cinema, Discourse, Pick 6 Movies, the podcast by The Cemetery, the podcast on Haunted Hill, the Psychosemantic podcast, Rick Radio, House of Wax, Dude Looks Like the 80s, Rabbit and Red Radio, the Shadecast, Short Bus Cinema, 2 Drink Minimum Commentaries, the VD Clinic, Who Will Survive Horror Podcast, and Witch vs. the Doomsday Clock. With such a wide spread of shows, there is guaranteed to be a niche for you to fall in love with. horror, politics, movies, books, sex, music, commentaries, health, video games, kaiju, action, news, comedy, and opinions that would most likely get you killed in some parts of the world. We are proud to bring you some of the best podcasting in the world. Check us out at www.legionpodcast.com, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other dark corner of the internet where podcasts can be found.